Hello, and welcome aboard to this episode of the We Are Reading One Piece podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to following the entire story of One Piece from beginning to end as we focus on one volume each episode. We keep the discussion spoiler free for new fans of the series, so this is the perfect place to follow along, whether you're new to the series or just want to revisit the world of One Piece with us. This week we will be covering Volume 8, I Won't Die, which covers chapters 63 through 71. My name is Joel, and I'll be your host. And join me today, we have Sean.
Hello, this is Sean.
And Evan.
Evan here.
All right, so yeah, I think we have a fun one for this week. So just a quick recap for what we went over last time. Sanji fought to hold off Krieg's pirates, but was unable to stand up to the invincible Pearl. We found out that Sanji is fighting to defend the Baratie in order to pay back his debt to Zeph for saving his life after they shared a traumatic experience of being stranded at sea with nothing to eat for weeks. Unable to obey his captain's orders to kill Sanji, Gin makes the decision to side with Sanji this time, defeating Pearl with ease. Furious at this insubordination, Krieg launches the deadly MH5 poison gas at Gin, Luffy, and Sanji. Gin makes the sacrifice to give up his mask to Luffy and holds another on Sanji's face, protecting them both from the gas, but leaving him exposed. This makes Luffy mad that Krieg would kill his own men.
Gin.
Yeah, so we latched on to Gin. We think he's a likable character, and yeah, he was a little conflicted. So it was nice to see that he decided to make a stand for what he believed in this case. But it might be costing him, so we'll see.
Also, quick note: looking at the cover, they have Pearl featured on it, and his hat is a pearl, and there's a pearl in the center of the shield, which.
Yeah, you're not aware of that in just the black and white?
I was unaware of that in the black and white in the last volume, so that's good to know. It makes his title make a lot more sense.
He commits to the bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the characters in color, because everybody's hair color always looks different than the way I expected them, especially when on the page everybody's hair looks white, so you don't always know what hair color they have. So then you see the front page of the cover, and it's oh, that's what they look like. Okay.
Krieg's got purple hair.
All right, so let's move on to the cover story. The last adventure of Richie's pirate crew, the fall of Richie's pirates. Richie and his crew are defeated by the Kamate tribe. Well, that didn't last long.
Not at all.
So that answers the question of would they rename the crew? So Richie decided to rename it. So we know that. But yeah, he had a quick fall from grace. So he tried, but he's no buggy. All right, so moving on to the actual chapter 63, I Won't Die. Krieg mocks Luffy and Sanji for having sympathy for Gin. He can no longer trust Gin and has no use for him, so killing him would be an act of mercy. Sanji shouts for Patty to get antitoxins that they use for food poisoning, while Zeph tells him to put the gas mask on Gin to help keep the poison at bay. Luffy tells Gin not to die, to live just to spite Krieg. Gin and Sanji attempt to convince Luffy not to fight Krieg, but he tells him that he won't die as he rushes in. Krieg launches another volley of stakes, but this time it doesn't stop Luffy. Luffy splashes the water with his foot, then stretches his arm back to try to catch Krieg off guard. But Krieg prepares his porcupine cape. Without missing a beat, Luffy follows through with his Gum Gum Bullet attack, punching Krieg right through his spiked cape. Everyone's surprised to see Krieg hit the ground. Zeph tells Sanji to watch Luffy closely. Every once in a while, a fool comes around who sets his eyes on something and won't stop fighting until he dies. He tells him it's a pain to have someone like that as an enemy, but he admires someone like that. Luffy and Krieg exchange blows, each asserting that they are the ones who will win. So this kicks off the actual fight between Luffy and Krieg. So who wants to start on this one?
This is one of the most, in terms of the most early gruesome moments in One Piece, that the amount of punishment, I guess the idea is that Luffy's just I'm just going to turn off my pain limiters a la Raiden and Metal Gear Revengeance. Doctor, turn off my pain inhibitors, and he just goes through the spikes and he just keeps going and is like, I don't care if this hurts. Like, I get is that because I was wondering, like, there's no strategy here. He just is like, this time it's not gonna hurt me, or I'm not gonna let it bother me enough to stop, I guess, which is one way of doing it, I guess.
Yeah, the way I read it was he kind of knew how much pain to expect this time, so I think he was more braced for it, and like his tolerance of pain is like through the roof.
That's already, yeah, it's true, but it's still some to show it in such a like visceral manner, particularly that final one of the final pages where you can literally see like 3 or 4 holes in his fist. It's just like,
I think also he was mad from how Krieg treated Geen.
yeah,
That
so
also kind of helped him
contributed
push.
to it. And not to get into the weeds about this, Evan, but I specifically remember this instance from as one of the most infamous moments of the 4Kids censoring the anime version of this. In the you know about the 4, did we briefly bring that up before about the original dub people for One Piece?
I don't think we've actually talked about the voices themselves.
Well, it's not so much the voices; it's what they
Okay.
did to the censorship and stuff.
Okay.
In the 4Kids version, in the original dub, well, for the broadcast, they changed the spikes to poison suction cups.
Poison suction cups.
Yes, so he just you see Luffy just pulling suction cups off his arm, and there's poison on them. Which, all right, I mean, I guess he does have the poison. He does have the poison gas, but it still seems a bit much.
Yeah, some other fun 4Kids things. There was Helmeppo having the gun. It was like a boxing glove at the end or something.
It's this ridiculous boxing, which is because they've already done this whole like turn the guns into water guns, but they give Helmeppo this weird boxing glove device, and it's like, why'd you do this? But okay, we can get into the weeds about that. I don't want to derail the conversation too much.
Yeah, just
to
one
say,
last thing.
Okay, go for it, Joel. If you want to, it's your podcast.
I do want to mention because you also made a joke about it last week. But like Sanji, instead of cigarettes, he has lollipops. So they keep the cigarette, but they change it to lollipop. So when he doesn't have the cigarette like in his mouth, he has a lollipop on the end of it. So. All right, last one. That was it. We can move on. 4Kids doesn't exist. It's not real. It can't hurt us anymore.
I mean, I think they literally don't even exist anymore. At least not nearly. Yeah, they went out of business. But
yeah. So anyway, Evan, what do you think about the kickoff to the fight?
I think it was interesting strategy from Luffy, or lack of strategy, maybe. I think he was, like you guys said, kind of just like blinded by rage and just made up his mind that he's gonna knock this guy out no matter what it costs. And so it's interesting to see him go brute force against brute force, because I mean that's Krieg's strong point, is his impenetrable armor and all of his gadgets and shields and all of that. So you think there'd be maybe a sleight of hand to try to, go around the shields, figure out a way through the armor. But no, he just decides to go like full force, just like literally punching through the porcupine shield, which was brutal, but such a great scene.
Yeah, that's
it was like a lack of strategy. It was just like a blinded rage. Just I'm gonna, pure show of power, and he knocks him out. So
sure does.
It worked out. Like
it is very satisfying seeing that guy's face just get caved in for a minute.
Oh, that was such a good panel. Such a good panel.
Yeah, that panel. That one's real. So that panel in this one. I also just love like that panel of Luffy rushing in when he does get hit with the stakes. But he's just kind of dashing.
Head down. Yeah, just going for it.
Yeah. So I really like the way he looks in that panel. That one's pretty cool.
He does look very cool.
And then I like how Zeph kind of is acknowledging Luffy's kind of personality.
Totally.
With his determination. So he recognizes that spirit in him. And
I think he sees it in himself, or like a younger version of him or something, or
I don't know about himself, or maybe just the type of people he's encountered over the years,
especially on the Grand Line or something. Yeah,
I could
see that.
Watch him closely, Sanji. That's what he says.
This
Yeah.
guy's a moron, but he's a tough moron. And that's what you gotta be to survive in this world. Completely
need smarts to
fucking
survive.
stupid. Just as long as you could just tank 1,000 of these needle things, you're good to go, son.
Yeah, and then Krieg and Sanji, Krieg and Luffy have some nice exchanges where they kind of go back and forth, and like they're both kind of saying like, "Oh, you're gonna be the one that dies." No, you're the one that's gonna die, and then like they kind of are meeting each other. So like every time they get hit, the other one comes right back. So it's I think they match up pretty well so far. So it's definitely
Yeah.
good that Luffy's one stepping up here.
Good on you, Loofster. It's my new name for Luffy. It just came up on the spot. I'm sure it'll stick.
And we never heard it again. All right.
Also, Geen talking through the bleeding, choking poison mask is like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
like
bad.
Gang's gonna pull through,
We'll see.
but
He's lost a lot of that precious, precious life juice.
All right. So any other thoughts before we move on to the next chapter?
I say we get on with it.
Let's move on.
Okay. Chapter 64, The Mighty Battle Spear. Luffy knocks Krieg down again as his crew can't believe that Luffy is able to take Krieg on. Krieg is frustrated now, so he removes his other shoulder pad shield and combines it with the other, forming his battle spear. He takes a mighty swing at Luffy, causing a giant explosion that sends him flying. Krieg takes a few more swings at Luffy, but he's able to dodge them. Krieg tries to swing at Luffy again while he's airborne, but Luffy manages to catch himself on the spear. He swings Luffy off and tries to hit him in the air again, but Luffy catches the spear by punching it from both sides, though this causes it to explode. Luffy is hit by it 2 more times and takes some heavy damage. When it looks like Krieg is getting the upper hand, the tip of Krieg's spear cracks as Luffy gets up, saying that he hit it 5 times.
Here we go again.
Here we go again.
Just brute force that way and break it all down.
We definitely haven't seen Luffy take a beating like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He usually takes one hit and then he's like, okay, now I know how to dodge you. It's like he doesn't so much know how to dodge Krieg. He just is like, I'm gonna keep going, buddy. Like,
but I mean, Krieg does have a bag of tricks. Like he keeps
does.
one-upping. He keeps upping it. He keeps changing his attack method or using a different weapon or whatever. So it's kind of hard for Luffy to read him, you know.
Yeah, and he always seems to have like one more thing.
Right.
And then one more thing. So like, it seems like there's like a never-ending like bag of tricks that he has.
I think like if Krieg would just give up on this whole pirate thing, he could become like the Billy Mays of the One Piece universe. Just like, I got my mighty battle spear, but one more thing on sale is the spear attachment. Like, I got the X5 poison gas or whatever it's called just now for 40 million berries.
And their shoulder pads.
Dual use.
Yeah, what was the cleaning product thing that he had?
I don't even remember. Oh yeah, the seal, the thing you slap onto, or was that that's another guy? I don't remember what. Yeah, but
yeah, what was Billy Mays?
OxyClean.
OxyClean. It was OxyClean.
Yeah,
That's what I thought it was. Okay. So like his version of OxyClean is the MH5. It'll get rid of anything. Yeah.
It'll get rid of any stain and or life.
Yeah, he just needs to work on the branding a little bit.
It's a bit.
So I don't know if you guys felt the same way about this one, but I went through the chapter a few times and I couldn't really get a read on how Luffy broke the spear tip. He says he hit it 5 times, but I didn't really see that happening.
I don't know.
He,
then he's
caught
like
it in his hands, kind of.
I'm
yeah,
not sure
so we saw that one time where he caught it like with his fist, so he punched it together,
right?
And then he got hit by it a few more times, but then it just broke, and he said he hit it 5 times. So I don't know if it was meant to be like off screen, but it didn't really read too well for me in this case. I think it's like the first time I've really seen something that didn't really make sense, even going back a few times. So I'm not sure if I was like not reading something correctly or if there was like a panel that was missing that caught this.
I wasn't quite sure either. I just assumed it
yeah.
happened somehow.
Because it's still there after he does the punching thing, which is the only time he physically strikes it.
Yeah, and I was wondering if maybe he hit it multiple times at that point, but that wouldn't be 5 times.
Right.
If he's hitting it like twice. But yeah, I know that didn't really read too well for me, and it wasn't exactly clear. I mean, it's not a big deal. Like you can be like, okay, well he broke it. That's fine. He just punched it. But yeah, it's just like the first time I feel like it wasn't really clear with the storytelling that we've seen from Oda.
Maybe he's never put it through that many explosions before.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking
Possible.
that too. And I don't remember if the anime does it a little differently. So I don't know if that's something that the anime does make clearer. I haven't watched it in a while, so I can go back and maybe watch it to see. But yeah, just from reading on the pages, it didn't really click for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
His sheer energy, his sheer just his aura just shattered the spear when we weren't even looking.
I mean, that frame is awesome. When he says that, when he said I landed 5 punches, he's like steaming.
Yeah.
There's like steam coming out of his face, out of his nose, out of his mouth.
I mean, Joel, is that a thing? It's like I'm probably pulling this out of my ass here completely and treading on dangerous ground with Evan.
Well, I know
but
what you're thinking. I actually saw
it
your
doesn't
Reddit
do
thread.
that. It doesn't do that.
Yeah, I don't think it's what you're thinking. I think it's
Okay.
smoking from the spear from the explosion. So I think that's
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. So that's what I'm thinking is causing that.
Fair.
But yeah,
I
don't
wouldn't
think.
put it past Oda to lay a seed
Yeah.
for that so far back. I mean, there are seeds he's laid back even earlier. So,
I mean, if you also, I don't want to say anything very specific, but yeah, there's some posing he does that does kind of lend towards what you're saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to say too much.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
So
all
if
that
you
went
know,
over
you
my head.
know. Yeah, don't worry about it. We're all good.
We'll get there, maybe.
Yeah, I think yeah, it was pretty hilarious the way that Luffy was just kind of like catching on to the spear, jumping on like multiple points, and that's how he was not getting hit.
Yep.
He like jumped on like the pole end, and then he like jumps on again. Like yeah, I think there's another point where he jumped on it.
Yeah, there's a point. Page 37, he jumps on it.
Yeah, yeah. I just thought
It's like
that was
holding
funny.
on to it.
Yeah, and I thought it was cool how Krieg formed the spear.
Yeah, shoulder pads. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I really paid attention to that before.
I didn't when I was first read this. Absolutely never paid attention to that. I think I realized it now on the second one, but I was like, yeah. I just like, oh, I guess he just pulled it out of his ass. Like, I wouldn't put it past him, man. Like,
But it makes sense where the shield came from in the first one.
really,
So I didn't really
yeah,
think about it. He just pulled it off his shoulder,
yeah,
and then he pulls off the other one, and then he makes the spear out of it.
works, yeah.
But now it's just a bomb on a stick.
Yeah, the tip broken. Yeah,
As Luffy puts it.
as
Yeah.
as he so ably puts it, yes. Which is still like, I mean, how does that thing keep exploding but not like explode itself? Like,
Right?
I don't get the logic behind
Maybe that's
that.
what
Like,
messed up the integrity of the spear.
yeah, I don't know. It's like, is it just the vibrations and somehow the metal contains the explosion inside? And okay, if we get into the weeds about this, we'll never get out. So I think we're just gonna have to leave it there. If we accept a man can be rubber, we can accept that this thing just keeps blowing up, but not blowing up at the same time.
Yeah, it's not really something I mean, I thought about it a little bit, but then I kind of was like you said, just kind of move on. I'm sure there's some kind of explanation that Oda can come up
I'm
with.
sure maybe somebody asked an
But-
SBS question later that I missed, but I don't know.
Speaking of SBS, we get a question is where
Oh,
you can start
boy.
to see where the SBS starts to derail.
Yep.
Where somebody asks, do all of his body parts stretch?
Here we go.
And then the answer is yes, everything stretches. So read that as you will. Okay, on that note, let's move on. Buggy's crew after the battle, part 20, Discovery, our pirate ship. Buggy and the mysterious woman spot Buggy's pirate ship in the distance.
Oh boy.
He's
Who
almost
is
reunited
this?
with his crew.
Yeah.
Getting exciting.
I wonder if he's gonna be like, you know what, Richie, I know it didn't work out, but you'll be my new first mate.
Because you did best my previous two.
You did best my previous too.
In your sleep.
Yeah. I think Moji needs to do a little bit more taming. Moving on. Chapter 65, Prepared. Luffy tells Krieg that without the spear tip, his weapon is just a bomb on a stick. Krieg thinks Luffy must be close to being defeated from taking direct hits from his blasts, but Luffy assures him that he's not all talk. Sanji agrees with Krieg's assessment, but Zeph points out that grit is tougher than weapons. Luffy jumps in the air, breaks off part of the mast, then throws it at Krieg, who counters with a flamethrower. Luffy then follows up with a Gum Gum Gatling, then a Gum Gum Bullet right to Krieg's armor. Krieg says Luffy's pathetic attacks can't pierce his armor, though Luffy seems to think differently. Krieg moves to the top of the mast and drops some bombs over Luffy. Luffy runs up to the mast and lands a Gum Gum Bazooka. As Krieg begins to fall off, he sees Luffy has reached his limit. Turns out, Luffy still has a lot more gas in the tank as he hits Krieg with another Gum Gum Bazooka while in midair, shattering Krieg's armor.
Not looking so good for old Captain Krieg here.
Yeah, I mean, look at that.
Yeah, that's
Such a good panel.
He's gonna feel that in the morning.
Yeah, I didn't really have too many notes on this one, but in general, I just feel like there's a lot of like really awesome action and panels, like you just showed. That's a great example. Although it was pretty funny with the Luffy playing into Krieg calling him a monkey, so he's swinging from the mast and going like ook ook.
Yeah. Classic.
Luffy's having fun like normal.
So he's clearly not worried about winning this fight. So he's got it in the bag.
Zeph had some great lines in here too, talking about Luffy's grit, or what did he say? Grit counts more than steel.
Yeah,
was a great line.
Yeah.
It just encapsulates the whole idea that Krieg is nothing without his weapons. Like,
right.
Exactly.
just,
yeah.
He is skin deep. He is very much skin deep in this case. He is, or whatever you call it, steel skin deep. There's nothing under there besides arrogance, and arrogance is not going to win you this fight.
Yeah, grit is tougher than arrogance.
Yep, that's for sure.
I mean, he's pretty strong. He's got to wield the MH5.
He's pretty strong, but so is Morgan ultimately. Like, I mean, more so. True. I wonder how much stronger Krieg was without all of his gadgets than just like say Morgan or somebody. So it certainly helps, but he's got to have some other trait, some other thing he's actually worked at besides I built a bunch of gadgets, or he bought them. I wouldn't be surprised if he just bought them from someone.
Probably the latter.
Yeah, and he still introduces more gadgets with this one. He has like a flamethrower now.
Right.
So like every chapter he has like a new gimmick or a new tool that he's using.
Well, he's run out of tools at this point, besides
not yet
just screaming copious blood. Well, at this exact point in this exact chapter, we are going chapter by chapter, Joel.
Yeah, I really think the Gum Gum Gatling panel was really cool.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, so that was a good one.
Those chunks. Yeah. Oh no, sorry, that's Gatling. Yeah, the Gatling's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like the impact when he lands the blow on the armor. So this one here.
Yep.
You can hear that ringing. Yeah.
Yeah, Luffy's finally landing some shots.
Yeah, some very satisfying shots. So
very satisfying.
Yeah, and then when that armor finally shatters, yeah, that's a point you're like, all right. He finally took him down.
Yep.
Took him down a peg. So It turns out that the one that was all talk was Krieg. All right, so are we
Maybe-
ready to?
Yeah.
Yeah, something, Sean?
No, I was just gonna like maybe this is what it's gonna take to push Sanji over the edge to this plus Zeph's words plus this display. Like it's inspiring.
It's true.
For sure.
All right, so let us move on to the next part of the cover story. Buggy's crew after the battle, part 21, an unhappy reunion. Buggy is surprised to see Kabaji and Moji knocked out on the ground.
Surprise! Look at that mouth.
That's like his entire body at that point.
That's hilarious.
All right, chapter 66, the chewed up spear. Krieg's armor now smashed to bits. It seems Krieg has been defeated. Not quite, as he throws a net at Luffy and catches him to throw him into the water. Luffy is able to get his legs free, twisting them up and grabbing Krieg's face. Krieg is in disbelief that Luffy is able to keep fighting despite his overwhelming firepower and strength. Krieg orders his men to shoot at his enemy, but Sanji intervenes and prevents them from doing so. Luffy smashes Krieg through the fin of the Brate with a Gum Gum Gabble. He's defeated Krieg, but now he is stuck in the water with no way out. Zeph acknowledges that Luffy's grit was his own kind of military power in response to Krieg's. Oh yeah, and Luffy can't swim. Sanji didn't realize this and jumps into the water to save Luffy. Gin is surprised that Krieg lost. He was the only man he ever admired. Sanji thinks back to how both Zoro and Luffy stood up to fight. Speaking of which, Krieg gets up and is ready to pick the fight right back up, though it seems he's lost his mind. Gin resolved this with a swift punch to Krieg's gut, admitting that they lost. Gin thanks Sanji for his kindness as he carries Krieg off.
Oh, it's cool knowing exactly where Krieg lost this fight.
Did he lose the fight?
This time, yes.
Did he though? Did he lose
Okay.
that fight?
What do you? Well, okay.
I mean, if
you wanna
if Sanji doesn't jump in and save Luffy, Luffy's dead, and
I
Krieg is
say
not
he still.
dead.
I say he still
I would
did.
consider that not a loss.
Okay, draw. I don't know,
Maybe a
But the-
draw, but
but
definitely not a loss in
I
my
disagree.
book.
I disagree
Well,
wholeheartedly. He was a
No,
loss.
I'm with Sean
The
because
second he says, "Help, men, help me," you're done. You're done. That's bitch move. I'm sorry. Like
Well, I don't know. I mean, Luffy at this point is also drowning to death.
I don't. Doesn't bother me. Doesn't like he still beat him. Like Krieg dies before Luffy does in this case. So good enough for me.
yeah. So I mean, I think that's a fair point because it doesn't matter if Luffy still dies here, he still beat Krieg at the end of the day. But then I think Luffy also wins because he gained the trust of Sanji. So if Luffy was a different person, like nobody would jump into the water to save him. But because Luffy is somebody that somebody wants to like be friends with, he's worth going to save. So that's why I also read it too. Luffy also won in that way because he also won over the other people through his personality and his determination.
Yeah, I just the second you're like I am the greatest. Wait, I need my men to help me. It's like, all right, well, I guess you're not the greatest anymore, are you? Like,
Same
and
with
not
Luffy.
even like they weren't
Luffy goes
motivated
down
to help
swinging.
him. Like, yeah,
But at the end, he would have died if it weren't for Sanji to save his life. He would have just sunk to the bottom because he was ensnared in.
I don't think death is lost necessarily. in this instance, I don't know. We're not
Well,
gonna we're gonna agree to disagree on this one
Okay.
because I'm not budging.
No, but I mean that's also a good point that he could have died, if there wasn't somebody there to help him.
Right.
But I think that's also important that, like, kind of like the point I was just making as well. There were people there to help him, so that's a credit to Luffy as well because he just met these people like 2 days ago.
Right.
So he's
Like,
already
in
kind
my
of won them
heart,
over.
Luffy won this battle.
Yeah.
But if it was just Krieg and Luffy fighting, at the end of this battle, Luffy dies and Krieg walks away angry.
Well,
Or
I'm
he might
assuming
have
he
internal
walks
bleeding.
away. He might like we don't even know. We don't know like
Because he gets up at the end of this chapter.
yeah.
Or maybe the fighting cooks would be able to, finish him
At
off.
that
Right,
point,
that's
he's
what I'm
like
saying. But I'm saying
he's
if there was
nothing.
no bystanders, if this was just a Krieg and
I don't know. We're moving the
Luffy
goalposts
battle,
here.
I'm not trying to take sides. I love Luffy, and I like Luffy won in my heart. You know, he goes down swinging and has the finishing move on Krieg, but then he falls into the water and would have drowned.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I get the point that you're making.
You know, like that was a sacrificial move for him. Like he didn't save himself. He took Krieg down, yes, but he didn't save himself at the end. He was ensnared in a net and like
Well, he did what he set
went
out to do,
down.
and that was to defeat Krieg.
Yep.
So nobody else was going to stand up to him and be able to do this. So yeah, all things considered, I think we can all agree that Luffy accomplished his goal, and Krieg has been put down. And then also, they convinced Gin to also defect or turn against his captain. So
Yep.
again, victory can be more than straight up fighting. So it can also be the way that you inspire the people around you and the decisions that they make in turn. So I kind of think that that's part of the takeaway here too.
Definitely.
How many more moves how many more names for moves would Luffy have at this point for just slamming someone? Because I feel like Giant Gavel feels like a bit of a stretch already. But if you want to talk about losses, it's like, come on, you got to up the thesaurus here, Luffy. Like,
there's gonna be a few more on the way, but
Gum Big Bazooka. All right.
But I do think that this is the best fight we've had up to this point, besides the Zoro Mihawk fight. But between like Luffy's fights, I think this one is an easy standout. There's a lot more Luffy having to really push himself. Like we said before, like he was kind of hurt before. He got slashed up by Kuro a little bit, but that never really seemed to be a threat to him. So this is the first time where he was taking some serious damage. So yeah, I think Krieg's probably put up the most fight, but again, not necessarily giving him credit as pure strength, but it was more of his fighting style that he relies on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on this chapter?
Let's see what happens after the dust settles and such.
Buggy's crew after the battle, part 22. Richie Ovan. Richie's pirate crew stewed in red wine. Richie and his pirates are in boiling. I'm sorry. Richie and his I can speak sometimes. Richie and his pirates are in a boiling pot as the Kamate tribe prepares to eat them. One thing I wanted to point out is I looked in the wiki for this one, and it was pointed out that their symbol is like a bear paw. So they have Kuma in their name, but the bear paw also resembles like a boiling pot with like three people's heads sticking out. So to kind of show that they're like cannibals. So I thought that was a clever little symbol. Not sure if it was 100% intentional, but I think it works.
Agreed.
Okay. Chapter 67, Soup. Patty and Carne are shocked that Gin plans to continue as a pirate on Krieg's crew after everything he did to him. Gin tells Sanji to pass a message to Luffy when he wakes up. He hopes to meet him on the Grand Line someday. Suddenly, Gin spurts blood as the poison continues to affect his body. He says he may not have long to live, but he's going to stay the course. Sanji orders that the other cooks give their supply boat to Gin. Luffy wakes up after resting and panics that he lost his hat, but Sanji tells him it's right there and passes along Gin's message. Luffy remembers that his time as chore boy ends today and asks Sanji if he wants to join his crew. Sanji can't leave until Zeph acknowledges his cooking talent. Sanji says he wants to go to the Grand Line someday to find the All Blue, but he can't leave just yet. Zeph watches from a distance as he sees how excited Sanji gets when he talks about his dream. The cooks gather at a table, but don't save any room for Luffy and Sanji. Patty asks who made the soup, which Sanji proudly admits that he did. Patty takes the soup, throws it on the ground, and says it tastes terrible. The other cooks all begin to follow suit. Sanji is offended and confused as to why everyone is hating on the soup. Even Zeph chimes in and tells Sanji his soup is not good enough to serve to customers. Sanji asks Zeph how his soup is any better than his, but Zeph makes it clear that Sanji would never be able to cook as well as him. Sanji storms out. Meanwhile, Luffy was helping himself to the soup and says it's delicious. They fill Luffy in that this is the only way to convince Sanji to leave, so Zeph asks Luffy to take Sanji with him. Just outside, Sanji can now hear what is being said inside as everyone is praising his soup for being so good. So, Evan, what do you think of this one?
Get some falling action after the big fight. I think Geen, I feel like he's a character who's been kind of on the fence back and forth over the last volume and a half, but he turns out to be a respectable dude and kind of like owns the loss here. And then I thought it was there's a nice moment between Zeph and Sanji, unknowingly, but like Zeph, like you said, noticing Sanji, his eyes lighting up, talking about the all blue in his dream.
Yeah.
And you kind of see the gears turning, and then what's up with this soup? What did he do?
It tastes like garbage.
So bad. But
probably flies in there.
I thought that was a cool way of the whole crew kind of taking part in acknowledging Sanji needing to move on and kind of sending him off in a way.
Yeah, it's a team effort here.
It's the pirate cook way of doing it for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, instead of just like straight up asking him, they know they can't resort to that, so they have to kind of push him out. But for a good reason. They have good intentions.
I gotta go back to my boy Geen for a bit. So, Joel, you said like you said at the start he's gonna rejoin Krieg's crew or something, or like.
Let me go back to the chapter
because it sounds like he's saying Krieg's dream has become my dream.
Yeah.
In this chapter, so it sounds to me more like he's not gonna kill Krieg. He's probably gonna part ways with Krieg in a minute here, but he's gonna like help him back onto the ship for some reason. But
he's kind of like, I've chosen the way of the pirate,
Yeah, he's not gonna stop being a pirate, and he's probably gonna. I mean, he probably still isn't gonna be the most nicest pirate, but he's also like, I'm not gonna work for this asshole anymore. I don't think. But
that's fair. Maybe I just misread it.
I mean, he does talk after knocking Krieg out again. He does kind of like talk to him like, "Nah, Dad, we gotta find some other party to go to or something. It's all over now." But like, I don't know. Then the whole like Krieg's dream has become my dream sounds a lot less like a subordinate first mate to this asshole than it does to me as like I'm going to start my own thing now.
Okay, yeah, because I read it that Krieg's dream is to be the strongest pirate. So I was kind of reading it as my dream is to make him the strongest pirate too, because that's what Krieg wants. But I can also see it being now I want to be a great pirate. So because I've joined this life, I'm taking that on too.
I could see that. Mostly, I choose to not believe that because that's lame.
No, and that's totally fair.
I think it would suck for Dean to just be like, I'm doubling down on this jerk who tried to murder me and demeaned me at multiple occasions. I'm like, that's anti-development in my opinion. But I mean,
he does say,
I guess it's an abusive relationship. I don't know.
He does say, I'm going to steer my own course, and then right after that, he says, loyalty to Krieg, for a long time I've been hiding in his shadow. So I feel like he does say he's kind of moving on and steadying his own course and
I agree.
Starting anew, but I think he does pay a little bit of respect back to Krieg, who had an influence on him.
Yeah, so I think you guys are right. I think the way you guys are reading it makes more sense. Yeah, like you guys are saying, he's planning on moving on to make his own way as a pirate. And he's kind of seeing Krieg for who he is, like the first time. So yeah, I agree. Like looking back on it, I agree with your interpretations on that.
But we'll see.
Team Geen.
Team Geen. Geen for the ween. No, that did not. That did not work. That did not work. That sounded like
It
something
sounded better in your head.
Yeah, sounded better in my head.
But yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense because, like, I don't know if Krieg would even take Geen back at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it
He
seems
said,
like
"I have no use for you." Like,
yeah,
like,
you suck. Like
he
that's not a
punched
guy
him,
who
like-
lets a. Yeah, he punched him again. Like, I don't think there's any way that ends with that besides Krieg tossing him overboard or something. But yeah, I mean, it's a good hell of a send off. Well, he's got blood streaming out of his nose and mouth, and it's just like, are you really gonna survive much longer? Either I think he will, but because this
Yeah, I like
world
to
is
think so.
ridiculous, but because so many people can survive ridiculous things.
They do make that a point though. Like, is he going to survive this?
Yeah, they
might
don't.
not.
They don't explicitly
open-ended.
say it. Luffy says, "I hope you will," or something, which to me
Yeah.
is good enough as "you will," because what Luffy wants, Luffy usually gets. So, but yeah, onward. As far as the soup stuff, that was cute. It was a cute. Like I think we all knew that was what was happening after like everyone joined in. Like, but like that's not a bad thing. But I was like, oh, okay. I smirked at that when I first read it as a kid. I see what you're
It's
doing.
totally
here.
how they would do it, right?
It makes
Right.
total sense for this group to be like, we can't just be like, Sanji, we need to have an intervention. It's like, no, Sanji, we need to demean you. And that'll get you out of here.
They definitely
Sanji,
fight
we
through
care
their
about you.
emotions.
Yeah.
Sanji, we care about you and your feelings. We want you to be happy.
Come on. We want you to find the all blue, buddy. Come on. Here's
Yeah,
a
we
plushie.
prepared some meals for you.
Yeah.
No, so this is the way they would do it. This is their style, and it's their way of showing that they care, even though they won't come out and say it. All right. So how about we move on to the next part of the cover story? Buggy's crew after the battle, part 23. Suspicious parts. The Kamate tribe find Buggy's spare parts lying around. Ooh,
Buggy
extra meat.
spare parts.
Yeah, so that's maybe they're gonna be their
ominous.
dessert.
Well, I hope that works out for Buggy. Maybe he got used to just being limbs.
Moving on to the chapter proper, chapter 68, the fourth person. Luffy declines Zeph's request for him to take Sanji on his crew, to everyone's surprise. Luffy says he would love to have Sanji to be their cook, but he has to make the decision for himself. Outside, Sanji sees a panda shark making its way to the restaurant. It jumps out of the water, crashing right into the baratte and on top of Sanji. Everyone comes out to see the commotion and to see Yosaku is stuck in the mouth of the panda shark. Yosaku fills Luffy in on what's going on. They weren't able to catch up to Nami, but they were able to determine where she was going. Sanji decides that he will join Luffy's crew. Luffy happily accepts. The cooks tell Sanji to get going, but Sanji saw through their acting from earlier. Sanji and Zeph bicker about how he regrets saving Sanji. Luffy and some of the cooks help stock up Sanji's boat for their journey, while Sanji and Zeph look back on their time together. Sanji is ready to ship off without saying goodbye, but then Zeph yells over to Sanji. Sanji can't keep it in any longer. He bursts into tears as he thanks Zeph for all he's done for him over the years. All the cooks, including Chef Zeph, now burst into tears and tell Sanji that they'll miss him. Luffy sets sail, adding another member to his crew.
I'm sorry. Even Patty and Carne.
Yeah. All right, thoughts on this one?
Very emotional. Much goodbye. Very sad.
It's a very heartwarming send off.
It really is.
I love
I like how they
Picture
kinda-
Oda's face, like squeezed up into a a crying face for this entire series. But
He's just looking into the mirror as he draws himself.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
Just
that's a
bawling.
callback to that the SPS question. But yeah, it is really touching how that they all have that tough exterior, and then they all end up bawling. Yeah, they are gonna miss Sanji as much as they butted heads. They still they're still friends and they care about each other.
I appreciate Luffy's growth because the early chapters are like of this arc is him like, Sanji, you're gonna join my crew. No, too bad, I already decided. And here at the opening of this one is like, no, he needs to say yes, otherwise I'm not gonna take him. Like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
force him onto my ship. So
That's true. That is a change of character for him.
in a good way, yeah.
In a good
like
way,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So good on you, Luffy. Now try not to mess it up from here. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So what do we think about Yosaku getting in that weird shark thing?
Oh, the panda shark.
No, I love how it crashes right on Sanji.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Like he has the entire restaurant to crash into. He has to go right where Sanji was sitting. Like, I think it's a great way to reintroduce Yosuke back into the story. Kind of fill us in on what's been happening with the other members of the crew without giving us too much detail.
Mm.
So,
Yep.
yeah, it's pretty comical.
We
yeah.
also, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm rereading this here. We also see Patty and Carne when they showed up as pirates or something,
That's right.
or ruffians.
Yes.
I don't know what they're supposed to be, but
Before they were employees.
and they got the friggin' like leopard skin jacket on and the chain and the sunglasses.
Yes.
Like I love that.
Yeah, you can tell that Patty has frosted tips.
He absolutely does. He is. Wow, man. This is pre rise of what's his name, right? Like
there it is.
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah.
So
yeah, he looks like he's
good.
straight out of the 90s. And we do see how Sanji picks up smoking.
Yeah. Or his addiction to lollipops.
Yeah, exactly. It starts with the lollipops and it goes to the cigarettes. Yeah, we get a little backstory too, like just like some scenes of like
Yeah,
Sanji
nice little
and
snippets.
yeah, like Sanji fighting with customers and kind of showing like who he is.
Goodbye, you crap guys. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna
then
call all my friends now. Yo, crap guy, what's going on?
and Patty and Carne try to send Sanji off by like, beating him up. So they take those giant spoons and try to hit him, but he just kind of like brushes them off.
They never
Not
had a
wasting
chance.
Yeah. But yeah, this is also one of those
I
great
thought this was a
panels.
great.
Oh, sorry, just to show this here with Sanji on his on his knees, and he kind of gets rid of that pride, and he thanks Zeph for all that he's done. And I think that was a really touching moment when he kind of breaks through that shell.
Good to see his eggshell break.
But sorry, I mean, you were saying
revealing that beautiful.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I think this is the first time I really saw Sanji break down and get really emotional and kind of lose his like suave persona. That he's always having a cool head and just been kind of loses it here. But it's very heartwarming.
Yeah.
Post island starvation, at least, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, it's nice to see that everyone gets their own requisite Oda crying face in this series.
And yeah, I like that. We do have Sanji officially decide to join the crew. You could tell he wanted to, but he felt he owed it to Zeph. But he's basically gotten the permission, and now he can kind of go on and do his own thing. It's time for him to have his own life instead of basically feeling indebted to Zeph and kind of being held back from actually going out and experiencing the world, finding the All Blue, and he can also expand his culinary like talents like out in the sea as well. So there's more for him out there in the world beyond just this tiny little restaurant. All right. Any other thoughts?
Yeah. I'm excited to see where he ends and what meals he cooks next.
Okay, moving on to chapter 69, Arlong Park. Luffy is excited to be back at sea and can't wait to get Nami back so they can go to the Grand Line. Sanji thinks their crew is too small to head to the Grand Line, but Luffy says that they can just recruit more people when they get there. Yosuke scolds them for taking the Grand Line too lightly. He tells them that Nami is after a really bad guy, but Luffy is more concerned about eating right now. Yosuke tries to warn them that part of the reason the Grand Line is so dangerous is because of the 7 warlords of the sea. One of which is none other than Hawkeye Mihawk. He goes on to explain the 7 warlords are government-sanctioned pirates who are allowed to raid the seas in exchange for a cut of their profit. Yosuke tells them that the problem is another one of the warlords, a fishman named Jinbei. In exchange for becoming a warlord, Jinbei had unleashed another terror on East Blue. Luffy and Sanji are distracted as they try to imagine what a fishman looks like. Yosuke tries to get their attention back, explaining that they're heading for Arlong's territory, Arlong Park. Arlong was Jinbei's equal at one point, so he must be tough. Yosuke pointed out that Nami was interested in Arlong's wanted poster before she took their treasure and the Mary. Luffy and Sanji are still carefree as they decide to eat. Over at Luffy's destination, Arlong makes his monthly payment to Navy Captain Nezumi to allow him to do as he pleases. Arlong admits that he likes Nezumi, invites him to stay for a drink, even though he doesn't like humans. Nezumi declines, so Arlong arranges for his fellow fishman Hachi to transport Nezumi back to his ship. Right outside the gates of Arlong Park, Nami sees a young boy try to make his way into the gates to get revenge on Arlong for murdering his father. But Nami knocks him down and gives him a pile of cash for him to head home. Nami enters, greeting Arlong, and tells him that she had a good haul. Arlong tells his men to prepare a feast as one of the crew members has returned. Wait, Nami's one of Arlong's officers? At this time, Zoro, Usopp, and Johnny arrive at Arlong Park. All right.
Nami.
Nami.
Dun dun dun.
Let's start with Evan on this one.
Yes.
I mean, that was a great reveal at the end when it was like, oh yeah, one of our fellow pirates are returning. I was like, what?
Yep.
And then they do a close up of the tattoo and they do the little officer Nami.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh wow.
Yeah. So up to this point, she had the sleeves on.
Lies.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, this is a pretty crazy reveal.
Yeah.
This is where, so okay, I mean, I'm just gonna tell you, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you anything more than that, but I said that, like, okay, Barati was like the really nice first course or something, the appetizer. I was like, but it wasn't what technically truly tied me to this series completely. This is it. This arc right here it's pretty much the arc that everyone says, if you make it to this arc and you don't like it, you don't like One Piece. If you make it to this arc, you're never coming back. You are a One Piece fan from this point onward. This is where it really gets going.
That's exciting to hear for me.
Yes.
Because yeah, it really does add another level. And then the character design on the new villains.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
This
good.
This motherfucker.
So cool. And then his first mate, Hachan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Hachi is what I mostly know him as, but yeah.
Hachi.
Yeah, this kind of like his nickname or a shortened version of his name.
Yeah, the character design on the fishmen is very cool.
I think that's a fun concept too for the fish people. Like, yeah, they're not just like your typical like mermaid characters. They're like all different types of fish. So in this chapter, we introduced the sawtooth shark and the octopus type fishmen.
Like
and
the
then
stingray.
Yeah.
So when we told you, Evan, I believe what was several episodes ago, oh, Nami's gone and she's never coming back. We were lying. You may be shocked to hear we were lying.
I had a feeling we'd see her again, but as a pirate, that I did not see coming.
Yeah, by Nami being gone forever, we mean her soul, because she's a heartless pirate.
She's an evil
The
murdering
Nami we
pirate.
knew has died.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a witch.
She's a witch.
Right.
So what'd you think of the 7 warlords?
Oh yeah. So when they're introduced, he says, what would he say? He said something like there's 3 great terrors of the Grand Line, and one of them is the 7 warlords. But then never gets what the other 2 terrors are. Only describes the warlords. And then goes off saying, Mihawk is one of them, and then not Arlong, but Arlong's companion or something was
Jinbei.
one of the other warlords.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say not to worry about the other terrors that he was talking about right now. Like, let's just focus on like the warlords because that's just kind of the warlords were just mentioned because we already met one of them, and one of them has ties to the character that we're now being introduced to.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just kind of more world building. So
Well, I was excited to hear about the other 2, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is pretty crazy information to get.
I mean, I think it says a lot that the world government's kind of willing to like make these like legal pirates as long as they're getting a cut. So I mean, I think it kind of shows you what kind of world government they have.
It's kind of like the IRL equivalent of the privateers, like basically pirates and like back in the day who were paid by England or Spain or whatever to raid on behalf of England or Spain or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They were technically employed by governments, and this is kind of like the One Piece's version of that, but much more focused into these 7 individuals that are quite dangerous.
Yeah, and that's a great bit of information because Oda definitely is drawing inspiration from like real world history.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of character names will be tied into real world figures. So there's a lot of influences he actually does have from the real world. I don't know like all of that, so that was a great bit of information, and that totally makes sense in this context.
Yeah, our only taste of that is Mihawk and his strength. Like, you can tell that the other 6 will be very formidable opponents.
Yeah, that's just one of them. So
crazy.
Sean, thoughts for you?
I mean, this chapter is just a body blow of like, oh God, what is happening now? Like we're still like riding off the energy of the ending of the Krieg fight here, and like, yay, Sanji, woohoo! Nami just kicked that kid in the face or punched him in the face, and it's like, I'm the worst person ever. It's like, oh, well, now I feel like I feel a little sick to my stomach. Like, the hell are we leaning into here?
Yeah, and we get the confirmation of the wanted poster that she was looking at earlier was Arlong. So now we know who she was looking at,
right,
and why. Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot introduced in this one chapter. So this is like a really big kickoff to the new arc. There's a lot of world building going on. There's kind of setting the stage for where we're going. But one thing I wanted to point out was Luffy and Sanji like drawing what they think the fisherman will look like.
Oh my god,
that's really good.
So like Sanji cracks up at the first one, and then like the next one he's like not really amused. He's like, it's just like the same thing as the last one he did. It's just standing up now. And then he draws hair on the next one and says it's Nami, and then he gets really mad.
That was so funny.
I'll murder you.
Yeah, Sanji's imagining they look more like mermaids. So that's where he's at.
And Nami's tattoo gets the reference.
It's pretty damn cool.
I mean, that's always been there, right? Like the tattoo's always been there since the beginning.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen her shoulders because she's wearing t-shirts or
so we haven't seen this till now.
It's been covered up, yeah.
Oh, I feel like I have seen it somewhere previous.
Maybe there's like a
now.
tiny hint of it, but you never see the full thing. But I don't. Yeah,
it might be on the first like one of the first volumes on the cover.
I don't remember that, but it's possible because it has always been there. It's definitely it's not something you got yesterday, but it's yeah.
Or maybe it's one of those like rub-on tattoos.
Yes, it's the temp tattoo she put on yesterday.
Yeah,
it'll wash off in a day or two.
Sure.
No, you get the sense that it's been there for a while. So, it kind of also going back to the world government. We see that Nizumi is taking bribes from Arlong to
Yeah.
kind of overlook
Mhm.
this area. So he's kind of shirking his duties. So we see again another example of the world government being
The best government
not the
ever, no
greatest. Yeah.
problems, no issues at all. They're definitely not corrupt. They're definitely not bad. They're a sterling example of governance in the One Piece world.
I mean, we got a taste of government corruption earlier, with Kobe and what's his name, the
Morgan.
Morgan, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But that doesn't seem like it was a one-off thing.
Nope.
nope.
Seems to be a bit more widespread.
Yep.
But yeah, we are just on the cusp of some of the best One Piece. And I mean that including up to stuff that I have all read past. Like I think even Joel would agree. This still ranks pretty high among people's favorite arcs even to this day. Like
but feel free to form your own opinion.
yes, of course. Please. If you don't like this, by all means, as we go on. I don't want you to like, oh, this is so good. So like you have to. Like there's parts about it I'm not super a fan of, but there's parts that I definitely am.
Yeah, well, we'll leave that up in the air. It's a blank slate for you right now, so we'll see what you think.
Yeah.
We are
So
at
how about
Arlong Park.
how about we move along to the next chapter? Okay. Chapter 70, The Great Adventure of Usopp the Man. Zoro, Usopp, and Johnny are watching the gates of Arlong Park from their boat, trying to determine where Nami left the Mary. Zoro is ready to storm the place, but Johnny and Usopp are not okay with this, and they tie him up. They find the ship docked at Cocoa Village. Since Zoro is still recovering, Usopp bravely volunteers to head to the Mary to retrieve Nami, since it's not at Arlong Park. Usopp proudly declares that this will be his adventure, but gets second thoughts when he and Johnny spot some fishmen hanging around the dock. Maybe they shouldn't dock, so they keep sailing. Usopp is ready to abandon the rescue mission for Nami, but it's too late. The fishermen notice their boat and dive into the water after them. Usopp and Johnny abandon the ship, and Zoro, leaving him to deal with the fishmen who now think he was a captive. The fishermen decide to take Zoro back to Arlong. Johnny and Usopp make for dry land, where they notice that Goza Village has been devastated by Arlong. All of the buildings have been flipped upside down. Johnny tells Usopp that fishmen have 10 times the strength of ordinary humans. At that moment, a fishman sneaks up behind Usopp, thinking he's a refugee of the village that he just missed. Usopp runs off as Johnny hides. Usopp runs into Chabo, the boy that Nami turned away earlier, but the boy mistakes Usopp for a fishman and tries to attack him. He's stopped by a woman named Nojiko, who notices that he's human, kind of. The fishmen catch up to them. Usopp steps up to defend the woman and child, but is knocked out by Nojiko before he can attack with his slingshot. Usopp wakes up in Nojiko's home on the outskirts of the village. She tells Usopp that she ditched the fishman and introduces herself. She explains that a fishman will kill you if you attack them, which Chabo should know better. Chabo is set on getting revenge for what the fishman did to his father. He explains that fishmen send large monsters to attack the village, which is the reason for the grooves that were in the ground. He goes on to tell them that he went to Arlong Park, but was stopped by a mean woman, so he wants to kill her too if he has to. Nojiko tells him that she saved his life, so that's twice in one day. He was saved and should be grateful. But she doesn't care if he wants to run off and waste his life to get revenge. He decides that he'll endure the pain and go home to his mother. Usopp thinks that she was being too harsh at first, but she's not a bad person. After Chabo leaves, Usopp tells Nojiko that he's looking for a woman named Nami. She tells Usopp Nami is the witch from Arlong's crew that the boy ran to earlier, and happens to be her stepsister.
Dun dun dun.
I must admit, I saw that coming. I feel like they look so similar.
Classic Oda.
But they're not sisters, they're stepsisters. So
yeah.
I was like, oh.
Well, by that logic, every woman could be related to Nami.
Pretty much,
fair.
yeah.
Nah, that's just a little joke because I mentioned it before, but common criticism is that people say that all of Oda's women look like Nami's character.
For a while, Oda draws two types of. He draws disgusting monster woman, and he draws sexy supermodel. And You'll see.
Well, I
But
feel like the only women we've been introduced to so far are her stepsister and the mysterious woman in the buggy side story,
and
Kaya.
Alvida.
and
Alvida.
Alvida.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that look similar to Nami.
Yeah. But regardless, it is still this chapter's is some great world building. How did those monsters manage to flip those houses upside down without destroying the houses completely? Like,
I was gonna say that too.
that seems a little weird, but
I
I
think they like
appreciate.
lift
Yeah,
them
Flipped
up
upside down meticulously,
yeah,
yeah,
they look
up
almost perfect.
gently.
carefully
Good,
flipped
gentle
upside down.
giants.
It feels like a statement was definitely made here, and I mean, I could appreciate the candor of it.
No, I think it's more a credit to the work of the builders that made the homes. That the
Yeah,
roof's like that sturdy, so they withstood the flipping.
good
So
stuff.
yeah, good.
Good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, this is awesome.
Yeah, that's
The
a
full
page.
page panel they got in there.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I think that this is a a great chapter for Usopp and Johnny's faces. I think they each have like several like hilarious faces that they make.
I think Usopp and Johnny were made for each other. They really bond in this chapter.
Really
We meet a character who is like
solid
almost as
duo.
much of a like a scaredy cat as Usopp. So he
Yep.
gives Usopp a run for his money. Yeah, they totally just abandoned Zoro to face the fishman, even though they tied him up, so he can't even defend himself at this point. And he's
Yeah,
injured
he
from
must
the
have been
last
very
fight.
weak to let them tie him up.
I appreciate though that even though he's definitely weak, and I think Zoro's aware of that, he's still like, so we just cut our way in. Is his first thing the first thing he says in the chapter is like,
Yeah.
That's Zoro. But yeah, I mean, just like going through like the first few pages. Yeah, so both Johnny and Usopp just kind of like freaking out, their eyes popping out, and then they have this page together, but they both look pretty shocked. And then Usopp has this page on the other side too. So yeah, I think a lot of really expressive, goofy faces. So, what did you guys think about the speech that Nojiko gave to Chabo?
it is harsh, but I mean, I get it. Um, there's this certain sense. I've been in his situation, not in such grand circumstances before, but where it's like, well, screw it. I don't care if I get mad. I don't care if something bad happens because of it. I feel this way right now, and I want to follow through on that no matter what. But at the end of the day, I get it. She's right, but I'm also sympathize with the kid being like, screw it. I still want to do this and avenge my family or something,
Hmm.
even though it will lead to nothing but his own death. But
Yeah,
Right. It's like he has the motivation and the determination, but then he doesn't have the ability or skill to back it up. Or like I would see Luffy having a similar like demeanor or outlook on the situation, but he actually has the powers to back it up.
yeah. So I mean, I think Nojiko does have some like a pretty harsh way of dealing with it, and Usopp's like he's just a kid, but Nojiko makes a point that like she knows somebody who had a fate worse than death, and they chose to live on anyway. So like Nojiko's viewpoint is you have to just live on, and giving up your life for something like that is like a cowardly way to kind of just give up like that, and it makes her sick. So she's like really like hammering into this kid, but it does seem to do the trick because he decides he's going to just go home to his mom because he still has people that care about him, and you know it's important to keep those people in mind as well. And it's not worth throwing his life away because whatever he does, it's not going to change the fact that his father has been killed. So getting revenge isn't going to change that.
Sad but true.
Sad but true.
Yep.
I do like, while they have the similar body type thing, we could harp on that, but I do like Nojiko's other aspect of her design. It's just she feels just distinct enough from Nami that is in she feels more like a cool punk girl at a rock show. Like I kind of
yeah.
like, so I am a fan of her overall design, even if some specifics are like whatever. But and I like her as a character, and I like, we'll see. There's more to be said as we go on, but she's a great foil here for like we have she's kind of the new Nami for a bit because our current Nami seems pretty out there. So
Yeah. Yeah, and you can't really tell from the manga panels, but she has blue hair. But
yeah,
Nami
which
has like red hair.
Good to know.
But yeah, just for
my
Evan's
brain always
context.
my brain thinks blonde.
Yeah, that's good to
but
know.
yeah,
See, that's what I was saying. Is like you can't tell what hair
Yeah.
color they have from the white the white pages. So.
yeah.
I think it's interesting that she was able to drag Usopp back to her house. Like we see later on, like how far away it is. But she's able to evade the fishman and somehow get Usopp back to her house.
I feel
So
like she knows the area very, very well. There's got to be
Mm.
some shortcuts or something. Yeah,
did she just like drag him by the nose or something? Like
she better have.
Is this the chapter where he's mistaken for the sawtooth fishman?
yeah, that's where Chabo attacks him, and then Nojiko's no, he's human, kind of.
Yes.
So I guess the nose is
Like, not Arlong.
was throwing it off.
Classic.
That was funny.
And Johnny also gives us some context for the fishmen too, like that they're 10 times stronger than like a regular human. So it kind of shows you like what we're dealing with.
Which you wouldn't think when you think fish initially. Like, okay, but like shark, but if you're just looking at like it was hard to grasp as a kid of like fish, man. For a while, I was like, why are you so tough? You look lame. Some of them don't, but if you say shark or if you say like whale, okay. But if you just say like, that salmon there,
Yes,
he knows how to put up a fight.
Watch out for that tuna fish, man.
You never know. But it's just kind of this weird aspect of the world that you're just like, okay, they're fishmen, and that makes them super strong.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, they're strong because I said they are.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually have to be like scientifically backed by anything. This is like their world.
It's true.
It's true. It's just what how they are.
Doesn't Arlong say they're like an evolution of human and fish, and they're even stronger than both combined?
Yeah, in the
At
next
one
chapter.
point?
Yeah, the next chapter he kind of goes into to more about.
He's a
Kinda
fish.
gives some back.
He's a fishman eugenicist. He is. It gets really weird at times, but yeah.
Yeah, we get like a little mention earlier how he thinks that he doesn't like humans, so he kind of has a thing against them.
Sure shows it soon enough.
He
likes money though.
Yeah. Yeah, but we get a little bit of insight here that like the fishermen are kind of like terrorizing the people of these villages. We'll get more details on that in the next chapter as well. But the people are afraid of the fishmen, and that's kind of where they're at right now. And this village is abandoned. There's not anybody left because something happened here because of the fishmen, and we'll get more context as to why. All right, so are we ready to move on to the next chapter?
Ready.
Okay. And just before I do that, I just want to mention the SBS question. Someone asked Oda what the D in Luffy's name stands for, and Oda just says it's just D, and he can't say any more yet.
Don't worry about it.
In case you're wondering, don't. No, but yeah, in case like you're wondering where this would happen, it's just D. We don't know what it stands for. It's just D.
No, yeah, it's totally just D. We'll get there, or won't. We'll see.
Okay, and we get the next part of the cover story. Buggy's crew after the battle, part 24. Body parts run amok. Buggy's body parts are free, reforming the rest of his body as he fights off the cannibals and knocks over the pot his crew was about to be boiled in. There we go. Buggy's back, baby.
Can't keep a good clown down.
Yeah, so we're having a little technical difficulty where Evan's camera is frozen, so I will pull up the page in his stead so we can see Buggy fighting the Kamate tribe here, which is a pretty cool panel. Yeah, the way his body is kicking without his feet, head, or hands. He's still doing some work.
Good.
And we see Richie like fall on the pot. So it looks like they're going to be not boiled today. So Buggy arrives just in time. Okay, let's get to the next chapter. Chapter 71, Lords of All Creation. Usopp is shocked to hear this was Nami's house. Nojiko tells him that they grew up in this house together, but the one who raised them has died. Usopp wonders why she would join Arlong and betray her village. Nojiko calls her a real witch. Usopp is hurt by Nami's betrayal and realizes she was just after their treasure. Usopp's main goal is now retrieving the Mary, which happens to be nearby. He remembers that Zoro has been captured, though. Zoro has been brought to Arlong. Zoro tells Arlong he's looking for a certain woman and calls him a half-fish. Arlong tells how fishmen are superior humans who develop the ability to breathe underwater and do plenty of things normal humans can't. Nami walks over to Zoro's surprise. Arlong says that she's smarter than other humans and makes the best maps. Arlong asks if she knows Zoro, but she says he's just someone who followed her after she took his treasure. Nami admits she betrayed them and has been part of Arlong's crew all along. Arlong tells how cold-blooded and cruel Nami is, that she overlooked the death of her parent for money. Zoro notices a shocked look on Nami's face, but he says that he knew she was no good from the start. Nami tells him he should just forget about her and leave this place. Still tied up at his arms and legs, Zoro jumps into the water. The fishman starts to laugh, thinking he resorted to suicide, but Nami decides to jump in after him. Nami pulls him up out of the water and gives him a beating before ordering to have him brought to jail. The fishman from earlier arrives, telling Arlong that the man with the long nose got away, but he may have fled to Cocoa Village. Arlong happens to have some business to take care of there. Arlong arrives in Cocoa Village and questions the man named Genzo about owning weapons. He says he's a collector, but Arlong says weapons are not allowed and will disrupt the peace. Arlong reminds Genzo that 20 villages are under Arlong's protection as long as they make their monthly tribute payments and don't cause trouble. Otherwise, they'll end up like Goza. Arlong requires the money in order to build his East Blue Empire. Over at the jail, Nami cuts Zoro loose and tells him to run before Arlong gets back. All right. Evan, I just want your thoughts on this one.
Wow, I think that Zoro places a lot of trust in Nami in this situation. I mean, you think that was his plan all along for it to have Nami jump in after him?
I think he had a hunch.
I think he had a hunch.
I think he was.
He risked his life on a hunch.
Yeah,
classic Zoro.
Yeah, right.
He risked his life to have a good fight one day.
Yeah, I think he recognizes the reaction
out.
in Nami, and he makes a decision to kind of test Nami.
That took a lot of courage.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, I mean, it was good. I mean, we saw Nami go in after him, so I feel like, not all hope is lost.
Perhaps.
Yeah, so we saw her go in to save Zoro. And instead of having him killed, he was brought to jail. But then we see at the end of the chapter that she tells him to run. So maybe she's not all bad. So maybe she kind of developed a soft spot for Zoro and her friends, like with their time together. So maybe she just doesn't want anything bad to happen to them. But we don't really know exactly her reasoning for this.
It adds some layers that were previously thought to be layerless. I don't know what I'm saying. We go back and forth with Nami on these chapters here, and it's a really interesting, like, will she, won't she be super evil? And sometimes she seems like it, sometimes she doesn't, and you gotta kind of left to make your own conclusions here. Maybe it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
She does help him escape at the end, or at least attempt to.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, we know that she's doing this for some kind of reason, but we don't know what the reason is. She could have left Zoro to die, but or just left him in the jail. But yeah, she helps him escape for some reason. But we don't know what her motives are quite yet. But we do get some insight into her history. So we know that she was raised in the tangerine orchard, along with Nojiko. And we know that the person that raised them died. So Nami betrayed her village and decided to join Arlong's crew. But there's a moment where Nojiko also seems surprised at what Usopp is saying. Like that Usopp was like saying that how he felt so betrayed, and like Nami seemed so nice and even helped save his village. And Nojiko kind of picks up, oh, you thought she was nice? Okay. So I
It's
think that
kept
was
her off guard.
interesting. Yeah. Seems out of character for Nami. Sean, do you have any other thoughts on this chapter?
Yeah.
I love Genzo's design. That man has more scars than I have, like, pains
And the reference
after a day of work.
to
I don't know.
tangerines. I forgot that she'd mentioned that, like, I think in one of the first volumes, how she
Mhm.
loves.
That she loves money and tangerines.
And there was something else she mentioned back in those chapters that I won't mention again, but I remember Evan brought it up. We'll see.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to it if
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
It's we're getting into the start of this saga, but I feel like it's already there's some groundwork being laid here that's a bit more mature, a bit more in depth than, like, say, the Syrup Village groundwork or the Buggy Village groundwork. Like, we're learning already more about this place than I feel that we learned about those places in a way.
Hmm.
It feels more real almost, but maybe I'm just saying that because I know how much I like the story, but I
No,
don't
I
know.
think that's fair to say. Yeah, because we kind of get a little layout for like the different villages in this area. So we know that let's see, I think Usopp just had like a little scene here. With Goza was destroyed, and we have the house where Nojiko lives, and then we have Cocoa Village, and then we have Arlong Park. And then we get more information that Arlong and his crew are basically extorting the villagers for tribute money in exchange for their protection. So basically, if they don't pay the money, if they fail to make the payment, or if they try to like fight back, then they basically just come in and wipe out the village. So they're kind of stuck in the situation where they're being kept under the oppressive thumb of the fishmen, and they can't fight back because they don't have the strength. The fishmen are just naturally stronger, like we discussed. So that they have all the power and they hold all the cards. So the people are kind of helpless in this position. So they're kind of just being oppressed.
It's a tough situation. Oh, wait, also, at the start of your summary, Joel, I think
Yeah.
you said something about, like, something all along. Somebody was, or Nami
Oh,
was a pirate all along, or
yeah.
what
The
was it?
Nami was part of Arlong's crew all along.
Okay. The way it sounded like you said was she was a part of his crew are along.
That's just me not speaking. Yeah, but
But
that was
it's
not
too
intentional.
good.
Yeah, going from like Arlong and all along, it was kind of like a tongue twister. But yeah.
I just had to point that out.
Yeah. Yeah, but Genzo, like Joe was saying, interesting design. So
So many
I don't know how he
scars.
has all these scars, but yeah, he looks very beat up, and he has
It's like
the
Frankenstein.
like the pinwheel on his hat. So yeah, just an interesting design for a character here. And we know that Arlong was talking about how fishmen are superior, and it seems like he wants to build a fishman empire in the East Blue. So he wants to kind of spread his reign of terror beyond these villages. So he's trying to amass all this money so he can, um, spread this this game that he has here, for lack of a better word. Um, Trying to build his empire out so he has more control over other areas of the sea throughout the East Blue.
That's gonna be bad times for everyone. So let's hope that doesn't come fast. But it's not looking good so far. He seems pretty dug in here, and the Navy doesn't seem to give a crap. So
Yeah, so the Navy's not coming to save the day because they're being
nope.
paid off. So they're fine keeping things the way they are. They're maintaining the status quo. They're looking the other way while Arlong just does what he wants.
Bad times. I wish I had more to offer in this earlier section, but the juicy nuggets of beef are coming later.
Yeah, just a lot of introduction here.
There's a lot of good setup. There's a lot of good table setting, but there's not a whole lot to chew on just yet, technically.
Yeah, there's just like moments here, little bits of information. It's just kind of like, kind of spreading some breadcrumbs and seeing what you pick up along the way, and kind of really setting the stage for like where we're at and what kind of situation the people are in. All right. So, any other thoughts before we wrap up?
Good. It's gonna get gooder, and then it's gonna get
We're
great.
good. I'm excited. I think the stage has been set.
Yeah. So let's get some rankings in here. So last volume, um, we so we were in the Brate arc. Now we wrapped up the Brate arc this time around, and we had let's see. So we had the arc rankings. So previously, you both voted for Romance Dawn and Orange Town in that order. Oh, I'm sorry. And then I'm sorry, we also had Zero Village. Let me pull up the correct ones. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. So, both Sean and Evan had Syrup Village, Romance Dawn, and then Orange Town. So let's start with Sean. Where would you place the Bratier arc?
It's my favorite of the ones so far. Yeah, I mean, I know it's Joel said it's not like you don't like it as much, but in some ways, I think, or maybe you don't like Krieg as much, but I love everything else so much, and I love the setting of this like floating restaurant was so unique and cool. Like it could have just been a floating island or a castle or something. To turn it into this restaurant, to flesh it out in that way, puts it a step above, I think, some other possibilities of what it could have been, and I really appreciate it for that.
Okay. So we'll put that number one for you. And how about you, Evan?
I'm gonna agree with Sean. I think Baratier is my new favorite arc. I mean, I think this series has just been getting better and better and better and building up steam. It might not have been my favorite boss battle, but it was my favorite arc.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so we'll put that number one for you as well. And then I
think the Zeth
personally,
and Sanji backstory is just like some of the best we've gotten so far.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so very compelling storytelling in the arc. Yeah, so there's a lot of just a lot of like really great moments in the arc in particular. I'm gonna agree with you guys as well. So for my ranking, I had Super Village, Orange Town, and the Romance Dawn. So I just had Orange Town in the middle. But I'm also going to put Baratier as my favorite so far. So for the reasons that you were saying, yeah, very compelling story. I love Sanji's background, his backstory. We get an introduction to Mihawk. That's still one of the greatest fights that we've encountered so far with Mihawk versus Zoro. So that was really exciting, and there's just a lot of great moments with recruiting Sanji. So with Luffy and interacting with the rest of the crew. So yeah, there's a lot to really enjoy the Parati arc. So I'm going to agree and put that number 1 too.
It's unanimous.
Woohoo!
All right, and then let's get into the villain rankings. So we did this collectively. So as a group, we had Buggy as number 1 and Kuro as number 2. So Sean, where would you place Krieg?
It's a tough one because he put up a better fight in a way than Kuro did. In some, like, I mean, it takes longer for Luffy to kill or not kill. I know, to take out Krieg than he like Kuro is. He dances around for a bit and then Luffy like Luffy hits him twice or something and he goes down. Like where he hits Krieg several more times.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know. I guess I'll put Kuro over by like a hair, just because I think Krieg really shows his true colors at the end. Like I said, when he's like, "Men, help me." Kuro never asked for his men to help him. In fact, he's going to murder them all.
Yeah.
So it's Kuro by this much.
All right, and Evan, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think the fights have gotten like exponentially grander and more involved with each villain we've seen. Buggy definitely still is my top with the first devil fruit battle.
Right.
And yeah, like Sean, I was kind of debating whether he'd go above or below Kuro. Yeah, I think Kuro takes the slight edge. Like you said, he was just the better villain. In the end, Krieg was completely reliant on his tools and his men at the end of the day. So I'll agree with Sean.
All right, so that will put Krieg as third. But I'm also going to echo you both as well, because I would also put Krieg at the bottom. Yeah, I alluded to this earlier, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Krieg. He's also overshadowed by Mihawk in this arc.
Yeah.
So he doesn't feel as much of a threat, even though this is easily the best fight we've had with Luffy so far. I just feel like Krieg as a character is less interesting and less fun than the other characters we've seen, like Buggy's standout character. Kuro's plan was, I think, more interesting, and Krieg is more. I just have an endless supply of tricks.
Gadgets galore. That's about it.
Yeah. So yeah, we've kind of like harped on it a lot, but he's more about like artificial strength as opposed to true strength. And yeah, I'm gonna also put him at the bottom.
I'm sure he's angry at us for that, but too bad. Dean, shut him up for us, will you?
Yeah. And then yeah, so we also like Geen better as a character. He wasn't a true villain, but yeah, Geen also kind of overshadowed Krieg as well.
He'd top my villain rankings if Joel allowed side villains or dragons and stuff. But yeah, but then he's also not really a villain by the end.
Solid supporting role.
Let's be honest, he tortured apparently a lot of people. So,
but not in this story.
Look, here's what I'll say: Geen is my problematic fave.
All right, so that is going to conclude this episode of the We Are Reading One Piece podcast. You can find this episode wherever podcasts are found at We Are Reading One Piece podcast.buzzsprout.com or on our YouTube channel at We Are Reading One Piece. Again, this is a spoiler-free channel up to where we have recorded in this podcast. So if you're new to the series, you can visit this channel there. But you can also find me and this podcast on my YouTube channel at Pirate King Codex for various One Piece content. I'm still focusing on the One Piece card game that's been just recently released in the US. So I posted my polls, which was pretty exciting. So yeah, that's going to be up there as well. And I'm hoping to get some gameplay footage up shortly. But next week, we will be discussing Volume 9, Tears. And I've been Joel, and I've been joined by my co-host, Sean.
So Sean, looking forward to stuff.
And Evan.
This is Evan. Thanks for listening.
All right, so that's going to do it for this week. Be sure to bring along all of your hopes and dreams, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Geen for the ween.
That's not going to happen.
Geen for the ween.